Behind the eight ball.
Just in time.
We're sitting here chatting and talking about stuff and didn't even realize it was time for the show. I don't know where Mike is. I thought Mike was coming on today, but I haven't heard from him.
Maybe he'll pop in a little later.
Yeah, I don't see anything in that. Let me check the email right quick. No, I heard anything there either. Well,
I know
anyway.
Jerry won't be here.
Jerry won't be here. Jerry's still a little bit under the weather, I guess. But Mike was going to come on, and I don't know where he's at. But anyway, not a problem. We got the rest of the knuckleheads are here.
Oh, yeah. We'll figure a way to kill an hour for sure.
Oh, I'm sure we will. Well, we killed the hour before this, so.
we were talking about shipping nightmares.
Hey, there's Mike in chat. Mike, did you get the link?
Did you
tell it to you? Okay. Anyway, maybe he'll get on.
I'm pretty sure I saw the address in the email that it went to him. Unless
yeah, I sent it to both of you.
Oh well.
Yeah, Jack says, "Hey, don't take my knuckleheads." That's the only reason I mentioned it, Jack, was because you say that all the time. So I figured we'd probably fit the mold.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, Dennis, before we get off, I want to talk to you about that three-way jig if you need that three-way jig again.
Oh, okay.
And I'll either mail it to you or, I didn't know if you might be coming this way, whatever. Anyway, we'll talk about that later.
That was a great update, Dennis. Man, I finally got the layout of how your whole building looks. And
yeah, I figured it'd been a while since I had shown the overall track plan on the channel, which I do have a whole playlist. If you go back from the very beginning, you'll see several different renditions of what I was trying to do. And one of my updates in there, I think I go through nearly every one of my track plans to show how I got from point A to point B. Not everybody's interested in that kind of thing, though. So, it is what it is. But most of what I've done with the track plan since my original decision to go with HO narrow gauge has been to reduce the complexity of what I did with the original track plan, which I think is a good way to do things.
Yeah, I like that interchange that you've got going with that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that will, because which I didn't mention it in the update, but you climb from here up to frying pan, and then you're going to climb from frying pan up to here. So I plan on having no grades as you transverse around the rest of the room, or only grades enough that you could detect them with the eye, like a slight visual aspect to the track that would add to, the overall scenic element. But the idea is that here I can manipulate enough cars to where I can turn a 10-car train maybe into a 15-car train and go the rest of the way around with a larger train. That's kind of one of the ideas that I can do with that interchange.
Yeah, having a dedicated locomotive there to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, it'll set out of sight, out of mind right around the corner here, and it will be the local for everything in there. And I don't even know if I'm using the right terminology because I'm not a train guy. I'm just not. The through freight comes through. All they're doing is dropping off what's on the siding and picking up what needs to go on further. Is that what a through freight does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or you could call your through freight a local, that does a lot of switching, and the interchange could just be a different railroad for that matter. The interchange is right there.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about a whole different railroad for the interchange, at least not in any depth. I haven't really thought about it. for one, if of course the whole railroad is make believe anyway. It's just based on multiple different railroads in Colorado. So I could probably get away with it, if I wanted to, have the CNS pull through there and make that just Colorado and Southern. But then if you add too much realism to it, I don't know. I probably won't do that.
Dennis,
And then
it's your
people go,
railroad.
well, that makes no sense whatsoever. When it didn't make sense, it made sense. Now that it makes sense, it doesn't make
I was
sense.
gonna say too much realism. I don't know, Dennis.
There's Mike.
Keep it.
Hey.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Okay, before we go any further, Steve, why don't you do the chat rundown?
If you want me to turn this thing on and you won't be able to hear me, I can.
Really? Okay, well, we can let Dennis do it then.
Or you can wait till I turn it on and I can try it. We can talk to Mike till my tablet loads up.
Okay. Oh, and there's Allie. Allie, I didn't think you were going to be here. Anyway, so what's new, Mike?
We just had a club meeting, had a bunch of guys come over. Looks like I'm going to be getting rid of my East Broadtop collection of stuff. So somebody's going to turn that into a module. So I'm pretty excited that the club is going to actually have something outside Colorado. So it'll be a little weird, but all the East Broadtop buildings that I built and did videos for over the last 2 years or so, till our buddy Nate passed, and I decided it would be nice to actually turn that into a module. So somebody's going to do that, but I didn't want to piecemeal it out. I wanted to kind of keep it together. So it's up to them what they do with it, but I'm kind of excited about that. So, but that allows me to have more bench space to create some new buildings. So I've got a couple of Conoco facilities that I'm working on, and a Texaco facility. One that Dennis has kind of alluded to. So, and one of the things that's been holding that one up has been corrugated. So there's a guy that actually lives really close to me who has started producing corrugated material for various scales. And I'm pretty excited about that. I just bought a bunch of it from him, and it's not the Campbell's metal corrugated, which I've got some left over. It's a paper corrugated. It's 8-foot wide strips, and it's corrugated that he produces that he rolls through. So it's going to hold paint really well. It's going to hold powders and matte finish really well, and that's going to be one of the big advantages to those kits. So there's a Texaco in Placerville. There's a Conoco in Placerville. There's a Conoco in Texaco in Telluride. So all three of those kits are probably going to move forward now pretty fast. So, and then the 3D tank, the storage tank for that, we're going to design that ourselves. And I have a 12K printer for that. So we're going to produce those as well. So I say we, because it's not just me, because it's a couple other guys too. One of the club members, Mike Conder, and one of the guys that I know that I met in Tacoma last year, Jonathan Sauer. They've been doing a lot of stuff. Matter of fact, I just got some chimneys from my buddy Mike, and he's interested in a couple of the Sargent buildings, the eating house and the bunkhouse. So he's like, hey, if I do the chimney, can I get those? I'm like, yeah, no problem. So we're going to start doing a couple of projects that are outside the normal RGS stuff too. So
Cool. I think Mike messaged me. I don't know if it was earlier this week or late last week. I didn't know that he was in that club. So cool.
Okay.
You ready, Steve?
I think I'm ready. Okay, we got Rob T-Man. Good morning. Bernard. Oh, man, I heard about your surgery. Good luck, my friend. We got Eagle Creek. And we got Heath. Good morning, Heath. Schuylkill River Valley John. Gerald Stewart. Roy Hardwick, Container Man 68. Good morning. How are you? Hot Dog Pilot Andy. We got Allison and Sparky. Hello, Sparky. How are you? We're going to send you the HO traveling box. Dave DS Multimedia. My buddy Steven Wigwag, he does signs too. We're going to be doing signs together. Whoops, wait a minute. There we go. Gerald Stewart. My tablet just froze up. Okay, there we go. Who else did I? We got Tammy, mom and son. How are you? Jerry's out. Hope you're still feeling better, Jerry. John Tanzillo. Let's see. Who else did I miss? We got Hi, H&H Express. Dave Todd. Let's see. Oh, he says, what are you modeling? This is the first time I've ever seen you lay out. It's N scale, Dave. How are you? Well, welcome to the show. Okay. Who else did I miss? We got a bunch. We got 30 people in morning. Good morning. Okay. Well,
Good to see everybody. And to answer Dave's question, he's modeling Santa Fe.
oh,
He's a Santa Fe guy before the mergers.
okay, there.
It looks like the wife is in there too. I don't know if she just popped in.
Oh yeah,
or-
Gail's there. Hey, Gail.
Bill's there.
She was
I
gonna.
heard.
She told me she was going to ride her bicycle this
Christmas
evening,
presents back.
So I got a question for Mike. When do you think the projected release date is? Do you have a projected release date on the bulk oil, or are you still working on getting it all put together and don't really know?
I could probably. So the big hang up right now is finishing the storage tanks.
The what?
The bulk oil storage tanks.
Okay.
So other than that, the structures are essentially done. And I have the material, a pipeline for the corrugated, and I can laser cut all the rest of the pieces. So it would just be the tanks. And later on in the era, the tanks were gone and the structures were still there. So essentially, as of about 1950, I have what it would look like. So, I would, so if I were to give you a release date, I'd say probably within about 30 days.
Okay.
And Mike Heath wants to know if you do all your own cutting, packing, and shipping.
I do all my cutting. I do shipping and receiving. It's right there. Design work happens right there. Right here is where I do actually all the design work. That's like the demo build area. And then I store stuff, what I call the lumber yard, which is in the storage area that's right behind me. So I'm sitting in a finished basement and various points in here. The room that's next to me used to be a large family room. It's all carpeted, lit, and heated and everything. So that's going to be future layout area. But right now I'm just doing kits at this point. So I get a lot of grief for how fast I come out with kits. And I'm like, I don't see it as fast. I see it as just something that I'm working on. And I have other vendors, a couple of them in town, as a matter of fact. And
Well, why would anyone give you grief?
Because they release kits slow.
Oh.
So yeah, that's kind of a little standing joke between me and a couple other guys. They make great kits, and a couple of them I have up on the shelf. But I look at it that they're not kits for me to sell; they're kits for my own layout. And if other people want them too, that's fantastic. So
Well, I know I can speak.
But that's a pretty
myself.
good business model.
That is.
that's my business model. So it works for me.
I know I can speak for myself and Steve and Dennis and probably Bill also, that we don't think you build anything on that desk. It's too clean.
I've seen some.
It's way
evidence.
too clean, man.
Occasionally, there will be a building on that perfectly clean spot just to his left, which
Yeah.
is some evidence that he works there. But
I don't think the caps
No.
have been off any of those bottles of stain or any of that stuff. I think he just collects it and puts it
This
up
is the
against
last time I'm ever going to show up on your show. You and me. This is actually the photo spot. I take all the photos right here.
Actually, I'm jealous that you can keep it that clean. I can clean up after a while, after doing some kits and stuff, but while I'm doing them, no, it's nowhere close to that. You just take those shells and dump them on the desk, and that's what my workspace would look like.
Yeah, I mean, I have to keep it this clean because I use this area for so many different things.
Yeah.
So I can't build and then take a photo because it looks like crap, and so I need it clean.
Well, it's basically just being in the habit of when you use something off the shelf, you're putting it right back after you get done with it. I have the tendency to set it to the side because I think I'll use it again real quick. And what's the point of putting it here when I can put it right here?
Yeah,
that ends up messing.
when I was at work, when I was doing working in IT, I was I had my desk at work the same way, and I would have people that hadn't come in for a day or two and then walk by my office and then see my boss and go, "Did McCarville quit?" I was like, "Why?" Because his desk is all cleaned off. He was like, "No, his desk always looks like that."
Well, two questions for you, Mike, in chat. One is how many from Heath? How many different wagon versions do you make? And Hi wants to know, do you ship internationally? And I want to say hi to Tim Parks. He's in chat. How are you, Tim? Good morning. Okay.
So that question that's up right now, I do ship internationally. There's an international link on the website. It's McCarvillestudios.com. And I've shipped to Norway, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, all over Europe. So yeah, I do ship. And some of the guys actually showed up at the narrow gauge convention here in Denver. And instead of shipping to them, I just handed it to them. One guy, Sebastian from France, showed up and he took like 10 kits away, including the big roundhouse that we did. And then what was the first question again?
Oh, it was
Wagons.
the wagons, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't make any wagons. So all the wagons that I built for videos and built for a buddy are from Berkshire Valley Models. So he's an O scaler, and I built all of his wagons in HO scale. So any of the stuff that he had in only an O scale, but not in HO. So I didn't build any of those options. He has some really cool vehicles in O scale. We put all of our O scale stuff on sale, 15% off at the beginning of this week. So anything that's in stock is on sale right now. But as far as wagons, I used to get teased about all the wagon videos. Oh, another wagon video, because I was doing every single wagon that Berkshire made, and it's for me to do, but it's also to kind of help the vendors. So I actually produce a couple of videos for other vendors, and even though they're competitors, I don't really treat them like competitors. For me, it's just to better the hobby, because if somebody's getting into the Western era stuff, they're probably more likely to actually buy one of the kits that we produce as well. So if I help the hobby, I'm actually helping myself, and I'm helping other vendors, which they're probably going to help me too. So
Yeah, so many of the younger kids are doing all the modern stuff, and which a lot of the stuff that you're doing doesn't lend itself to very well. It doesn't mean it couldn't. It could be an older building and along the track somewhere. But yeah, the niche for that era and narrow gauge, not that your buildings can't be used on a standard gauge, but that's mostly where yours come from, or the narrow gauge line. So it's your clientele's not so big. So yeah, sharing that kind of stuff across the genre Yeah, I can see being very helpful.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that that they're interested in is stuff that I've considered doing. But again, the buildings are for my layout initially. So I mean, I've done 12 kits for Placerville alone, and it's not a very big town, and not everybody models Placerville, but for me, that's what I'm interested in. So that's what I'm going to produce.
Well, you know, one of the other things you could get into, I don't know if there's anybody doing kits for them, but they're in the narrow gauge and short line Gazette all the time, are the Bodie buildings in Bodie, California, which I still kick myself for not driving through there when I was right next to it. But
yeah, I've thought about that. But again, I mean, I've got so much subject material that I want to cover. And Bill Banta has been the early supporter of what I've done. And after we talked about the very first kit together, he ended the phone call and he goes, okay, well, we'll get that going. And congratulations, you're a kit producer. And I went, oh, crap, I only have one kit. I better get going. So,
yeah, you stepped off in it now.
yeah.
I've got a question.
Mm-hmm.
So how many total buildings, it's going to be probably a barrage of questions. How many total buildings have you completed for your railroad?
So for my railroad specifically, I've completed 32 kits for myself, but there's a lot of Berkshire Valley Banta kits, one-offs that I've completed that are on the shelves behind me. I'd say 200 or so. So
what percentage of the total number of kits projected for the railroad have you completed?
Oh gosh, 10%, 15, 20%.
So you've built how many?
So there's 32 HO scale kits that I've finished.
And that's only 10% of the projected.
Yeah, because I've done nothing about Rico. I've got almost all the depots that are rags kits to finish. So, and that doesn't even count any of the rolling stock stuff that I plan to do in the future. Although almost everything I'm going to do right now is Blackstone.
Okay. So then another question to follow up. How much of the track plan, I'm trying to think of how I want to ask this, because I know what I want to ask, but I don't know how to ask it. How much of the track plan is and or was forced, that's not the right word, but the structures as they relate to the track plan, how does that work for you in planning the railroad? Does that make sense? In other words, you're unlike most people, you are building all of your structures first. You haven't laid, unless I'm confused, you haven't laid one piece of track yet. Is the track plan complete? Have you got it on some place where we can actually look at it and see how things are going to look, or is all of that going to come once you start placing the buildings in the space allowable? It's a terrible question.
Yeah. No, I mean, so that's actually my thought process is I'm in the process of possibly eliminating the Dallas Divide scene, or making it 2 buildings or something and not having any passing tracks, simply because I would rather have most, if not all, of Placerville modeled, because operationally there's a passing track, a spur, and then the whole other spur that has 2 oil facilities and then stockyards. I see that as more valuable in track plan now. And initially I wanted Dallas Divide, which was basically a main line and spurs on either side, or passing tracks on either side. So 3 tracks wide, but no switching opportunities really there. So my track plan continues to evolve, and Dallas Divide will probably end up on a display shelf or a show module, as opposed to just 2 or 3 buildings in Placerville, because Placerville is 2 huge warehouses. It's got a couple of different tracks. Operationally, during an ops session, I can have a lot more fun with Placerville, and I really can't do much with Dallas Divide. So I have had 2 different track plans drawn up by somebody in our club, and both of those are stuff that I'm like, well, you can take Brown out because I'm not going to use Brown at all. So we're starting to eliminate different things. There's a bridge, a famous trestle that's there, and I'm like, I don't even have room for that, so that's gone. So to answer Spark,
Is there
yes,
any
I have done
chance?
that.
Is there any chance in the future on the channel we could maybe take a look at what you have proposed now? Because I don't think I've ever seen a track plan for what you have proposed. And I'd love to see it just because.
Yeah, and part of the track plan continues to evolve because the areas that I want to build structures for continues to evolve. So I continually add and remove stuff. Like Vance Junction, lots of stuff to do there, so I kind of want to include that. Telluride, I do like Telluride, but I'm not sure if I'm going to model that. I think I probably will, but that's another complexity because it's a whole side spur that goes off to the side. So the track plans that I have, the first one didn't include like where the stairs were and where the windows were. So that one was kind of something that somebody threw together based on just the areas that you knew I wanted to model. But and some of the stuff that I'm putting together, like Placerville, could get ripped out of my basement completely and turned into 2 or 3 long show modules. So I could still model it, but I could set it up in the basement and then have that set up. So I want the basement to basically be, stuff that is good for op sessions and not scenes, and stuff at train shows is okay for op sessions, but you really don't do op sessions that much at train shows. You do everything for run bys and continuous running and stuff.
Gotcha.
So that whole mental, gymnastics is constantly in play.
Mike, I left that Sparky question up for you because I saw it and I thought you might want to answer. That's an interesting question. And I didn't want to interrupt you before. So
So to answer Sparky's question, I have gone back and forth with other vendors and talking about opportunities. I was just talking to Bill Banta about a possible engine house in Rico that we could do. And I threw that over to him and I said, I can partner you with it on it or whatever. He's like, that would even be like 2 years before I could even look at it. Here's all the plans I have for that, plus the coaling building, plus the bunkhouse. Here's my plans. Do what you want with them. So I threw it over to him, and then he threw 3 buildings back over to me. So I was like, okay, well, now I got more on my plate. So like I said, I haven't even started Rico yet, and that is something I want to do as a terminus of another area. That said, my daughter moved to Seattle, and my wife's like, hey, Tacoma was a lot of fun. Do you ever see yourself living in Seattle? And I go, I can model anywhere. So I go, logging, huh?
Well, so did Bill, was he laughing when he told you you're a kit maker now?
He was serious. He was very supportive, but everybody else was giving me a hard time about, you've got 1 kit, you're a producer. Sure you are. So,
well, I was just wondering if Bill.
Yes,
I was just wondering if Bill knew, because he's been in it for a while, how much of a headache it could be.
Yeah, him and I both agreed on the same thing. Is like, if you ever want to hate your hobby, try to make money at it.
Yeah, exactly. Sparky says it's a cool way to do business. Kids' ideas still work together and get more for the hobby. Well, like I was saying before, it's because it's such a small, in the big scheme, it's such a small niche in the hobby that you got to have some of that, I would think, to at least to be able to do a business at it. And I know everybody in the hobby, I can speak for everybody in that part of the hobby, welcome that stuff because it's, not easy to find a lot of it.
Yeah, and a lot of the other thing is I have to dance around the other vendors too, because I can't just go and produce something that 3 other vendors have made. So there's saturation in it. I talked to Rags to Riches, Joe Foose, about a kit, and I said, I won't do this kit if it's going to bother you because you did it. And he goes, no, I think it's great what you're doing for the hobby. And he retired, so he didn't care. But it was a warehouse in Placerville, but he only did a condensed version. He didn't do the full-size version, so mine's full-size, and I changed a few things that are more prototypical. And I had the kit. I was going to build it, but I'm like, yeah, it's not the prototype size. Now, if somebody else wants to slice it down in size, they can do that and they can condense it. I do custom one-offs every once in a while for people, especially in the club. So I don't do N scale. I used to do N scale, not kits, but I used to model a Pennsylvania Railroad N scale in a different house here in Colorado. But I haven't gone into N scale. Again, I'm already in a niche of a niche. So it's really tough for me to get anything. And matter of fact, O scale is not really all that. It's not a big business driver. So I've limited the amount of kits that we do in O scale.
Really?
Most kits I've done. There's an O scaler in our club, and a lot of the buildings that I did, I would do one for him in O scale. But I got to convert the kit. I got to source the materials. I got to set up time and cut those materials. And I said, if you want me to do those, I can, but they're not going to come very quick. So all in all, but across HO, S, and O, we've almost 80 kits. And that's since July of 2022. So about a year and a half.
That's
Yeah, I've noticed that you're getting a lot more in there now from when you first started, but yeah, it is pretty impressive.
I've been busy.
Well, eventually, I'm going to get the Elite Saloon Hotel. I'm going to get that eventually. I've got so many kits already, and so many scratch builds that I still need to complete that I just don't know when that I'm going to get it. But I plan on that building being in Frying Pan.
Cool. Yeah, that was actually the first Coker watercolor that I got from John Coker. I asked him if I saw it on his website, since I've got about 6 of his prints now in the train room. I asked him if I could do that kit of one of his watercolors. And he said, yeah, but if you do one, you got to do one in S scale because I'm an S scaler and I'm going to want a kit. So I did it in S scale. And I sent him one, and then he sent me the print, so we kind of swapped.
Cool.
So, but it was fun to do, and I mean, that was actually really popular, and it has the interior walls all set up, so the second floor just slides out. It's pretty cool. The thing I hear from the upscalers is I don't have room for any of your bigger kits at all. So I came up with one that's a really small footprint. It's only an HO. It's like 3 inches by 3 inches if you count the boardwalk. So it's really shallow. And that's to kind of appeal to people that don't have that much space, or guys in our club that have modules and they don't have that much space because it's only like 3 foot or 4 foot wide by 2 foot deep. After you put a couple of tracks in there, you don't really have room for a lot of structures. So they wanted some really small kits that I've done.
Yeah, I've run into that on mine because I didn't plan. Now, the upper deck that I'm finishing, I did start doing some of the buildings and stuff before I even did the track plan up there because I wanted to have some room for some stuff. that I didn't do on the bottom level. I still, even though I didn't do it that way, had I done it that way, I still couldn't have got everything on there I wanted to get on it. That's just the nature of the hobby, I guess, and what you've got room to work with. I don't
Yeah,
have,
and you've got to compress a lot. Yeah. I saw another question about a different railroad. Everything I've done has been in Rio Grande Southern track work in Colorado until I did the Cumbres Pass section house. That was the first Denver Rio Grande Western structure that I did, and I'm looking at doing possibly 2 more fairly easy ones. Matter of fact, those are the next two I'll probably release. And I haven't really gone outside Colorado, although, I mean, I come from Pennsylvania Railroad, mainline stuff, big buildings and big scenes and stuff. And that's kind of where my interest was until probably about 5 years ago when I started doing narrow gauge. The first time I walked by a shelf that I saw a Blackstone BoxCar for like $60 at Caboose Hobbies. And I was like, that's outrageous. Why would anybody spend that much money on a boxcar? And yeah, 10 years later, I've got, 25 Blackstone boxcars.
Yep.
Yeah. Be careful what you say. People will use it against you.
What's with my camera doing this? It's doing it again.
I did that earlier before the show
I
started.
know, and I did it last week. I'm not sure what the heck is going on. See if I fix it. Yeah. I don't know.
Allison's got a good question. She says, gets a new idea for a layout area. How do I pick one and stay with it? That's a good answer for Dennis.
What's the question?
Uh,
Can you put it up there, Claude?
I'm looking for it.
I get a new idea for a layout nearly every week. How do I pick one and stay with it?
Well, I think you have to decide what you want to depict on your layout or what you want to use your layout for. Are you going to use it like Mike's making the choice between operation and scene? So, pick something that's most important. Make a list of that kind of stuff and
That's
go
what
through
I was
it
going to
that
say.
way. And that'll help you decide on what you got to do. But you're going to have to give up something that you want. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah.
That there's no way you get around that. Not with unless you've got a warehouse to build something in. But then you're not going to have enough time in your life to build it. So you might as well decide, hey, this is what I really, really want, and do that, because everything else is not going to fit on there, or you're not going to have time to build it. One or two.
Yeah. What I would say is evaluate your priorities. Really, take some time and figure out what is it you want. Cross-reference that with your skills and your space, and just get a plan together on paper before you do anything, and then be willing to change as you go. That's essentially what I did before I started anything in here. I had, of course, about a year, because everything you see, I actually built, finished the room, all of that. So I had about a year to track plan and really think about what I wanted to do before I actually put the first 2x4 in here. 2x4 in here. So, take the extra time to really think about what you want and make sure you know why you want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like on mine, that mountain that you see when you come in the room. That was the main thing I wanted. I didn't really plan on putting a helix in it. That's what ended up happening with the track plan. But I knew I wanted that kind of scene on my layout. That was the main thing I was after. Everything else was getting designed around that. And I knew it was going to be narrow gauge, but everything else was going to be designed around that.
Yeah, I'm lucky that I have access to a club that I'm in that does shows. And those seem to be fewer and fewer. And one of them isn't even local to me, but they meet once a year. So you can kind of have different scenes and stuff through other people's work. So clubs are good. There's also, if there's any museum, local museum, I mean, I live fairly close to the Greeley Colorado Model Railroad Museum. So I can go in there anytime, and I have a ridiculous amount of track that I can go and enjoy. So that's an option too. Michelle Kempema and I are good friends, so I talk to her every once in a while. So,
How is she doing, by the way? I saw, it must have been on Facebook or someplace. She was in a hospital bed.
she is actually going through chemotherapy.
Really?
Yeah. So it sounds like she's doing okay. I don't need to.
Yeah.
I don't have too many details myself anyway.
I was just curious because I didn't realize she was in the hospital. But
Yeah, and it's been going on for probably a couple months, maybe almost 2 months, and it sounds like she's doing okay. And she's actually last T-shirt I saw her wearing was a cancer survivor T-shirt. So I was like, well, that's a good sign. So
yeah, good. Hope she's doing well.
yeah,
Yeah. The Model Railroad Museum is a fantastic place. You know, it would be real fun to do operations there. Now, I was just there just to see it, but it's an incredible layout.
yeah. If anybody goes there, ask to see the rear area because there's a staging area that's ridiculous. It's like 80 feet, 100 feet long, maybe longer, and it's got, I think, 4 or 6 staging tracks for each direction. It's ridiculous. And there's all these duck under areas that you can go and explore. There's some additional stuff that's hidden. Not very much, but there is some. So yeah, that's pretty cool. The staging area is ridiculous. They've got so many trains in there.
Well, what I thought was funny was here it is in Colorado, which is, you know, beautiful scenery to model, and it's about Oregon. Oregon line.
It is, and they've got the BoxCar outside painted for the same railroad as in Oregon.
Yeah.
And then they've got a warehouse next to it. So they're in a warehouse that they specifically custom did under, you know, the foundation. They did these little under walkway pass-throughs and stuff. And then if you get a chance to go in the warehouse that's next door, because I was doing museum curation work for them for a little while, that thing has, like, you know, the Union Pacific guys came by with a full height railroad flashing signal, and it's laying in there. Baggage wagons for old depots. They've got 40-foot containers, big storage containers. There's 2 of those inside the warehouse, and they don't take up that much space. And it's just, you know, stuff that they get donated to them, and there's all this stuff in there, and it's kind of a cool place to go see all the stuff that they actually have. They have a plan for expanding that in the future to double the size of the museum, and the layout will stay the same, but they're going to add on more stuff. So hopefully they get to do that in the next couple of years. But she showed me plans for that, and I'm like, oh, that's just cool. I mean, there's already a huge reason to go. And there's a caboose in there in their existing building, and then if they go and do all the plans that they've got, I think there was some trolley stuff. There was different gauges that they were talking about adding, not just their current HO scale stuff. I'd like to see narrow gauge stuff added, but I think they're talking about O or G scale. And then Michelle just built a huge Christmas display in there too. So there's a lot of stuff that they've got plans for, and they're right next to the tracks.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, there was a train came through while we were in there, and you definitely notice it when it comes by.
Yeah, you do. Well, when the big boy came by, I was upstairs in their window, and I was taking pictures of the big boy from up above. So that was kind of cool. So, and the UP guys, the historical preservation guys, are in good friends with Michelle. So she gets to ride, like when the big boy came, I was sitting there by the tracks handing out buttons and pins and stuff to little kids, and I was sitting on the ground as it rolled by, and it's a big engine, and when you're sitting about 5 feet away, sitting on the ground, filming it as it goes by, it's a huge engine. But then she gets on the business car and rides back to Cheyenne with it. I'm like, oh, you suck.
Yeah.
I thought I felt pretty lucky.
How fast did they go by?
When they rolled past, it was just a few miles an hour.
Oh, because we saw them in a small town just east of here, Oklahoma. And of course, people were standing on the tracks before it got there, a bunch of idiots.
Of course.
But it came through about 40, 45 miles an hour. And which really surprised me because it was such a small town and there's a lot of road crossings that aren't marked except with crossbucks. So it kind of surprised me they came through that fast. But when it's coming through that fast, we were standing maybe 50 feet away, and you can definitely feel it.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah.
And loud.
When they snuck the big boy out of Cheyenne and sent it down south towards Greeley, the very first time, I was chasing it, and then and it made it down to a town called Nunn, Colorado, and they had some packing problems with the pistons, and then it made it almost to Greeley, and then they backed it up with diesel power back into, and then worked on it all night, and then they ran it finally on schedule in the next day. So the first time I saw it go past, wow, I got chills. That was amazing.
Hey, I think I found the secret to making a layout run good. Little thin layer of sawdust. This thing's been running for almost an hour.
You should do a video.
Who knew, Steve? Who knew? Hey, Tim, thanks for dropping by. Tim's going to go run a real steam engine. So,
Yeah, I'm jealous.
yeah. And when I say a real one, I mean a real one. It's full size. It's not the little one.
Yeah, Heisler today.
Where does he run at?
Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad.
Oregon Coast Scenic Railroad?
Yeah, he's
Cool.
running
Look into that.
the Christmas train. They got all the light train and all that good stuff. Yeah, he's a qualified steam engineer, and I taught him everything he knows.
Well, I saw his comment about knocking Santa over by putting the thing in emergency. So we got to hear that story sometime.
Yeah, when he tells me, I'll let you know. But yeah, he modeled 1-to-1 scale and 1.5-inch scale and N scale. So he's all over the place.
Good mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a complete disease, that's for sure.
Yep.
And by the way, I showed my wife, I saw a video on YouTube the other day. It was, I think it was Cumberson Toll Tech Golden Hour or something like that. Some guy shot, and he did it in the fall when all the aspens are turning. And that's when I want to get my wife up there. So I showed her a little bit of it. Kind of got her going because she's not crazy about the trains, but she likes the scenery. So I got to get her up there for that. But yeah, it's a beautiful video. If you see it, it's only about the first half out of Chama, but he didn't do the gorge and stuff, which is a little tougher to photograph if you're not on their photograph tour. But it's a good video if you want to see it.
Hey, we got an
It's called something. Sorry.
to see Bill's progress on the N scale layout.
Oh no, yeah, we got to talk about that. We got about 10 minutes, Bill.
All right. It'll take just a couple. So made a little progress. I'll pull the camera off here. All right. Did a little bit this week. So I've got Jerry's track in place. So this is just, everything's connected. I'm going to actually put power to it this afternoon a little later and run some of my engines just to give the track a test. So kind of walk over this way, and you can see his Piedmont Blue Ridge Railway plans, and the track turned out pretty reasonable to what he did off of the modeling program. I had to make some modifications just for some curves, and due to switch sizes not necessarily being exactly the same as what's on the print, but this should be a fun little layout for him. So what I'll do is I'll put power to it. I'll send Jerry a video, see if he wants to come over and run his engine on it, just to see if he wants to make any changes or modifications. Then what I'll do is I'll come in with a felt tip marker and trace the outline of all of the tracks so that I can use that as my guide for putting the cork road bed down. Once I get the cork road bed down, then I'll come back in and start putting the track down. Some areas where I've got a lot of sectional track, I'll put in flex track just to kind of eliminate some of the joints. You know, I'll make my own feeders for the layout, but we're making some progress. It's coming along nice. And all of the track right now, I'm using like little safety pins just to kind of hold it into the foam board so that nothing's moving. When I put power to it, I've got good joints, and then I can, you know, just see how trains run on this.
Now
So I'll be having some fun with it. And that's pretty much all I've done this week.
that little spur track that's right there on your right when you were showing next to the red toolbox. Are you going to have to extend that out? It looks really short. Yeah.
No. So that's what he wants. He's got it where this is based off of a prototype here in Virginia, and that's imaginary lines going off. So what'll end up happening is I will, once I get everything put in place and permanently down, I'll cut it so that it's right at the edge. Same with this one, same with that one, and the same with that one over there. So he knows already that he's never going to use the switch, you know, to go or to run. But that's what he wanted. So you can see even on the plans, he's got it where they're extending off layout. So he's
got room for a little modular layout that he could plug into it.
He could in the future, if he wanted to do so. You know, it'd be easy enough to do. But this just gives him the idea that, you know, hey, I can bring in a different train from a different railroad, run it onto the track that I've got, you know, connections to different places. So, you know, he could have some fun with it. I'm going to be bringing out a bunch of my DC end scale stuff this afternoon. I've got a bunch of engines. I got a bunch of cars that haven't run for years. So that'll give this a good workout just to see how everything's going to run. But it should run pretty well. You know, the track, the curves are not excessive. Doesn't look like I've got any real pinch points on anything. So I'm going to run a variety of engines and cars and probably even passenger cars on this just to give it a good workout a little later today. That's what I've been up to.
Nice.
Looks good.
Yeah, it looks real good.
Yeah, spent a couple of evenings putting the track in place. You know, it's really not going to take that long to do the rest of it. Once I get it functional, figure out what Jerry wants for electrical blocks and other pieces. But I'll have the basics done on this probably by Christmas. And then after that, we'll see what he has for buildings and how he wants things. And then we can start looking at doing ballast and scenery and, you know, give some tutorials to his family on how to build trees, and they can start building the forests that are going to be in parts of this. So it's a fun little project. It's going pretty quick.
So he's going DC.
Tire, I can do a lot more of these, I think.
He's going DC with it.
Yeah, he's going DC. He's got an engine that he bought years ago that he just loves, and it's DC. So he's going to stay with DC on this.
That'll save him some money.
Yeah, for sure. And it's small enough, even with, if he wants a few electrical blocks, that's not going to make it overly complicated. It's a simple layout, but it should be a fun one to run.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the suicide crossing there and everything. So,
Yeah.
it's because that's what we thought of as kids. We saw those crossovers and we thought, oh, do a little
Gomez Adams train wreck.
Yeah.
yeah, Adam's Family stuff. Yeah.
I'm going to mess around with some of my track today and experiment with a scissor Y. Just to see if that might be visually appealing with what I've got going on right now. I expect it won't work. That's kind of my expectation, but I do want to look at it just to see if it would be cool or not. I don't think it would be prototypical. Of course, nothing I'm doing is prototypical as far as
What?
Yeah.
What's a scissor Y?
What the hell's a scissor Y?
So it's kind of hard to explain, but as you loop around towards your Y, the Y crosses over itself.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you end up with a crossing that then you have, two tracks that go like this into the Y. So you're actually going in to the left hand. The right hand from here is going in the left hand to there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. You end up with a broader radius curve, but I'm not sure if it's going to work. But I am going to experiment with it because if it looks cool, if the trackage looks cool, I might go ahead and do it just to do it. And there's also the possibility that, of course, I have no desire to run the bigger equipment back there anyway. And that would be the primary reason to do, would be to increase the radius on that Y going in.
Yeah.
But I think I would also have to push back the turnout, the Y turnout further in order to get it done. And I don't think I want to do that. But I'm gonna mess around with it because I think someone dropped a comment in my most recent video and suggested that. And I didn't know what scissor Y was either. So I looked it up and I thought, well, I'm gonna look at it anyway.
Yeah, I've seen those done before, and every place I've seen it done, it's like they're narrowing the width between two of the turnouts. All the ones I've seen, the between these two turnouts, that length had very little curve to it. Usually it was straight, and the others came off, crossed over, and came down to a Y on the other end, so they could narrow the Y up together, or as Allie says, a triangle.
Triangle.
So it wouldn't be a triangle anymore.
This got to be a first. I don't think I've ever gone the whole show, ran a train, and it ran without an issue.
Sawdust, I guess that's the magic material.
It's
It's electrically conductive.
It's the Twilight Zone, Steve.
Huh?
It's the Twilight Zone. You've officially entered the Twilight Zone.
It's running. That's weird.
I think he needs to be an SF on there.
No being
I had a question.
That's all I ever see. Every once in a while, I'll see a Norfolk and Southern come along behind a BNSF, in the same consist. But that's all I ever see out here.
We got a minute and a half left. I got a question for Mike I meant to ask when we were talking about your kits. Mike, are you going to have any of the trestles? Are you going to have a trestle kit at all?
I've talked about doing possibly a jig. So
that'd be good, yeah.
There's one guy that I know does a kit, and he puts all of his basswood strips in a jig, and the laser cuts everything perfectly to length. And I haven't messed with that yet. That would be a good test for that, because then you could. But again, every trestle, I do Rio Grande Southern. Every trestle of the RGS is completely different, and because the ground the ground line is completely different. So you'd have to have somebody custom put it on there.
He wants to know when you're going to do some more live streams.
I just don't have time. I actually did one about 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was, at this point, I don't have time to do it. I was going to start doing it Wednesdays, and I just don't have time. I think this probably fits better than anything else. So, and the other thing is, it's tough to commit that kind of time on a regular basis, and not have it interfere with everyone else's schedule too. So
Yeah. Well, that's our hour, guys. Mike, thanks for coming on again.
Yeah.
And you're welcome back anytime you get a new one. We bring it on and we'll show it on here.
Okay.
Talk about it and stuff. And Bill, good to have you back too.
All right.
And Dennis, get an address, would you? Besides, hey, don't leave. I got to talk to you.
Okay.
Eve, thanks. Again. And everybody in chat, you guys have a rest of a good weekend.
Take care, all.
A good week, and we'll see you next weekend.
Later, guys.
Bye.
Later.
thumbs